Hi everyone, welcome to the MLA review. I think the last time I reviewed MLA with you or taught it to you was week 4 of the semester, and I'm in the middle of finishing Essay 2. I'm almost done with the Essay 2s that I'm grading and returning to you, and so thanks for your patience on those. I got a little bit behind y'all. I have had a little bit of personal stuff going on, like a lot of you have had personal stuff going on, so I'm a little bit behind. But I'm almost done, and the reason I mention Essay 2 is because when I reviewed MLA with you before, when we were about to turn in the rhetorical analysis, Essay 1, I went over in text citations and works cited pages, and I'm noticing that I'm marking a lot of the same things in a lot of your drafts. So I want to go over some things so that as you're working on revising Essay 1 and Essay 2, and as you're working on setting up your Essay 3, if you're using an academic essay as the medium, you'll know how to do this. But regardless, you'll know how to revise for Essay 1 and Essay 2. All right, so I'm using a large font so you all can see. So the font's not a normal size. It's like in 16, usually no longer than 12. I'm going to remind you of some things. That you do have the heading over here with your name, the professor's name, the course, and then the date that the essay is due. So I just put the deadline there for Essay 3. Remember your header. You all, the header, if you double click near the top of the page, you enter the header. And from here, I usually add a page number. Let me move my image to the middle of the page for a second. I usually add a page number, and then I do top of page, and I usually select plain number 3. I'm not going to select it since it's already in there, and then I type my last name and a space before the 3, and then I double click below that hyphened line, and then I have my header. I've noticed you all have a lot of extra space at the top, so remember that after the header, you don't have this big gap. So I'm just going to hit backspace. Again, my font's really big, so it looks like everything's close together, but you don't want this gap, y'all. So there's the title that's centered, and then my paragraphs are at the left margin, so we're not going to center the paragraphs or anything like that. So, make your changes, get rid of the big spaces in between everything, make sure you have your heading and your header. And now let's review in-text citations. And I think I'm not going to do a works cited page. I think people are pretty good on the works cited pages, but the in-text citations are needing some revision, some repair in your essays. So I have typed out the first 2 paragraphs of that essay called Offensive Speech is Free Speech If Only We'd Listen. I asked you to read it for Module 8. If you haven't read it in Module 8, you'll read it for Module 9. And it's a great essay to read because it has the Tolman argumentative structure in it. Super, super handy in the textbook, y'all. I'm just going to hold up the textbook to show you that the textbook has these like blue notations in the margin so you can see where the Tolman structure is happening in the piece. So that's just sort of an aside. Let's get to in-text citations. So the thing about in-text citations is that you need them every time you summarize, every time you paraphrase, every time you quote. And that's not happening in all of our drafts. It's hard to remember to put in text citations after summaries and after paraphrases, but you must. Putting those things in your own words, sources in your own words, does not make you free from adding an in-text citation. So I'm reading Stephen's essay, pretending this I'm Stephen and typing my essay, and you'll see that I've added an in-text citation right here. What's going on is that this case court has been summarized, and an in-text citation is necessary. So I went and found, let me show you a website I went and found, a source. I don't know that this is the source that Stephen used, but I'm going to pretend that it is. And I see this is a Harvard website. This is JOLT, the Journal of Law and Technology. And so somebody at Harvard wrote an article about the Mittal versus Tam case. And there's information here that looks like what's related to the source that is in paragraph 1 of Stephen's essay. That's on page 158 in the 8th edition of our textbook. So I'm going to use an in-text citation, and I have the author's name, Nikki Edmonds. I'm going to put Edmonds in my in-text citation. So you all remember, when you're summarizing or paraphrasing and you haven't mentioned an author or an essay title to tell who said what, and that's pretty typical with summary and paraphrase, that you might not always introduce those because you're just giving the information. It is important when you're quoting that you're saying, according to Edmonds, or, whatever, whoever's saying the words, that you would give the author's name. But in this case, since I'm not mentioning the author, I'm going to use the author's last name. So there's my in-text citation for this. And what's going on, y'all, is that from here to here, there is some summary of this source, which is, much longer, several sentences to tell what the decision was based on, this disparagement clause of the Lanham Act, and that's what we see in Stephen's essay as being summarized there. Awesome. First in-text citation is entered. All right. I want to show you that I know the rest of this is not summary because there's opinion. There's some opinion in this sentence about the justice's outcome, and then I highlighted the thesis in yellow. How do I know this is the thesis? Because it's a pretty strong statement on how federal bureaucracy should work. And plus, it's highlighted in the textbook. So I know that it's the thesis for sure. So I guess I'm trying to show you all how to distinguish between what is paraphrase and summary and what isn't paraphrase and summary. The justices are still mentioned here, but there's more of an opinion from the writer. And so as soon as you, the writer, move from just summarizing a source or paraphrasing a source, and you feel like you're starting to give a position or some commentary or some kind of response, that would be the place to add an in-text citation between where the summary is and where the response or the thesis or whatever else is in the paragraph is coming after that source. So just trying to help you to identify where in-text citations should go. But pretty much they always go at the end of the source, wherever the source stops, wherever the source information that you're presenting is done, is finished, and you're going to move on to your opinion or your commentary or whatever. All right, let's look at another spot. And so now we have a little bit of help because in the textbook, you'll notice that the textbook, I'm trying to block the sun for you all. It's very warm on my back, so I'm staying here. You'll notice in the textbook where Stephen Carter's essay is, that there are footnotes. So the footnotes sort of give me a clue about where sources should be cited, where an in-text citation should go. So in the second paragraph that I also have typed into this document, oops, I went too far. I put an in-text citation here. In the textbook, there's a footnote. So when I look down at the footnote, there is again more information about this Lanham Act and this disparagement clause. So I am going to again put the same in-text citation that I used before. I'm going to use the same source, right? I'm going to put Edmonds again. I'm going to remind you once more that this source that I found on Harvard is maybe the source that Stephen Carter used, may not be, but I Google searched a source and pretty sure that this source could be used in the same way. You see mentioning of the slants. This is information about the case and how the case went, and all of that. So again, want to point out to you that we have some words in quotation marks. The disparagement clause is in quotation marks. We have some other terms paraphrased, and then the word slants is also in quotation marks, related to the language that may have been disparaging to people. So that's why the word is in quotation marks there. So I'm still going to put Edmonds at the very end, not after the quotation marks, because this is it's hard for me to tell. I mean, it's for me mostly summary because there's several paragraphs that talk about this case. So you'll notice that I've put it at the very end of where the source information came. And then the next sentence is more of the process of the case. So it didn't come from the case history source that I used, that the band appealed. This is like the process, right? The law process. And then the final judgment of the court is in the last sentence. How do I know this isn't a part of my summary? This word happily is opinionated. And so I know that I'm not going to have an in-text citation after any of this stuff because it's process related, kind of narrating what happened in the case, and on the opinionated side. So one more quick reminder, you all, and so I'm going to type some stuff at the bottom here. The order of use of in-text citations, I always start with author last name. As long as I haven't introduced the source with the author's last name, then I can use the author's last name in my in-text citation. If I have said according to Edmonds, then I'm not going to use the author's last name, and I'm going to use the next option. Let me put that inside parentheses. I forgot to do that. I'm going to use the next option, y'all, which would be the essay title, inside quotation marks, inside parentheses, right? Because this is the in-text citation, and the information has to be inside the parentheses that way. Also want to remind you all of where the period goes. Okay, the period goes after the in-text citation. Notice up here, there's no period before. I've marked this a lot in essays that you all might be revising, but it is here after. Okay, the only way you would keep punctuation before is if there was an exclamation point or a question mark, and that's actually for quoted material, not in paraphrases. So what I just showed you is incorrect, but if something was quoted and it had an exclamation point, the quotation marks would go there, or the question mark would go there. But since this is a paraphrase, or a summary, I'm going to remove those things. The next option, let's say I introduced the source and I said, according to, I'm forgetting that person's first name, according to Nikki Edmonds in the article called Mattel versus Tam, then I can't use that information in my in-text citation either, right? So then my option is the website title in italics, y'all, like this. Okay, in the italics, and the period goes after, not before. All right, I think that's the end of my MLA review, and I'm probably pretty close to the 10-minute mark. I'll review Works Cited entries in a different video, just so I can show you how to go through the website again and pull the information from the website. Even if you're using a website like EasyBib, it's still good to know where to pull the information from on a web page that you're using for a source. So I'll make sure we go over that in another video, but I encourage you to email me if you have questions about these in-text citations. The only last thing I will say is that, remember, I did tell you you could use paragraph numbers if you want to. And then that would take you out of this trying to remember to use the author's last name only if you don't introduce the author as you're using the source and all the other things I've already said. So you can use paragraph numbers, and then if you use paragraph numbers, you would not use any of what I have put in gray on the screen. You would just do the paragraph numbers. So in this case, I would do paragraph 2 maybe, and then paragraph 3, right? If I wanted to use paragraph numbers, I would do paragraph 2 right here and paragraph 3 right here. So you decide whether you want to use what I have in gray or the paragraph numbers, and let me know if you have questions. Thanks for watching the video. Talk to you later.